Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I've got stuff all over the place at the moment. I've just finished watering all what I call my normal pots. Did a load yesterday and just finished off today. Did them back to front this time, just for a change. Just to raise the interest level, because it is a bit tedious sometimes. Especially like yesterday, I mean, it was raining most of the day. It just feels miserable out here when the weather's like that. Today, we're getting intermittent bits of sunshine. So we should get some heat in here for a start. But the first thing that happens when the old temperature goes up is the humidity goes down. But now I have a concrete floor, I can chuck water all over the place and save the foggers working their butts off like they are at the moment. Well, one is. I think the other one needs its setting changed a little bit. This one up here comes on frequently, and this one's only come on once this morning, so this one needs pushing. So that this one comes on more frequently, and then that one won't have to work so hard. Because if the temperature gets up, the extractor fan will come on, and then whoosh, all my humidity gushes out to the outside world. But anyway, while this shelf is cleared off, there's a few things on here to look at. While I was desperately trying to point the camera right up the back and have a look at this, which has got bugs on it. How funny you get bugs like that, and that scale as well. You tykes, you just cannot shift these things. That's a spray for you. Yeah, I was trying to film this the other day, and it's a difficult one because it always lives up the back, but it has got quite a few buds coming on some of the canes, not all of them, but we do have buds. So there's some around here as well, so that's going to bloom. But some eagle-eyed people spotted this. Oh, God, I'm getting all tangled up here. Spotted this just in front of it. Now, this is my Shelob Tolkien. This has a lot of new growths, but the first one that's virtually mature now is pushing out a nice spike. And the fact that that's got another 3 or 4 new growths following on at different stages, and the blooms last quite a long time, when this one does come out in bloom, another spike should be following on, and then another one, and then another one. I may get a couple at once, but who knows? Ow. What else? Oh, something, yes, a pot full of sticks. This is one of the ones from Beatrix out of the big box. And I repotted it and it was lifeless. Well, if you look right down there at the bottom, there is a little bit of green showing. And I'm pretty sure that the base of some of these canes are starting to swell. There's a little bit of green sticking out the side there. Now that could be a kiki. It might be a bloom. But there's a little green nubbin. So it's not dead. There is some life in it. It didn't have very good roots, but it had some that were viable. It has not a leaf on it. So obviously there's no photosynthesis going on. But if it can push out some new canes, then it'll be up and running. It's a strange one, this is. This is the one we investigated its heritage. It says it's a hybrid between Jarak Spin Blue. Well, I couldn't find the clone name Blue anywhere, so that might just be one nursery's idea. Crossed with Wendy Lim Shuang. And the only reference to that I could find was Wendy Lim Shuang Shuang. That's like Mr. Smith's. Anyway, it has a hell of a heritage, and deep down in there is probably 80% at least of antelope type dendrobium. So although they are, I'd class those as mainly semi-deciduous, not totally deciduous. So this ought to have some leaves left on it, really. So it's obviously been in a bad way at some point, but we have signs of life. How long that's going to take to sort of really get going, because it not only needs some new growth at the base, it also needs some new roots to go with them. But it's not dead, even though it looks very much like it. Very much like it. I didn't think that one was going to recover, actually. A couple of the other ones out of the big box that are debatable whether they're living or not. This is good news. This is the Aphyllum from Alberto. Well, it did its blooms. It's done that. Totally deciduous cane. So again, no leaves, but we have a new growth. Singular, but I'll live with one. That was just a kiki. I didn't expect blooms, and if it pushes out one new cane this year, nice good strong one, that'll do. If it can push out more, even better. But it's on its way now. That new growth will generate a root system when it gets going. There's some more up here as well. This one is not looking happy at all. I'm not even sure I've got a tag on this. I know what it is in my notes. No, it hasn't got a tag. This plant, to all intents and purposes, looks dead, and it may be. It's difficult to tell. I still water it, but there's no life up there. And down here, it got serious cold damage on it, which took out the leaves quite badly. So I'm not sure. There's a little nub in there. That could be a kiki. Don't try and bloom. Don't be silly. Actually, there's several on the cane. There's another one up here too. So I'm not sure what that's doing, but the fact that it can push out nubbins, it's not dead. You know, it's not far from it, but it's not dead. The roots on it are capable of hydrating, but they're not what I would call active viable roots. There's no green tips anywhere. There's no growth anywhere on this plant whatsoever. But if it can push out nubbins, in theory it's not dead. But as I say, it's not far off, which is a shame. I'll see if I can find out what that one's called. So say, these are all identified in my notes. I just didn't get round to putting tags on a lot of them. I think I didn't bother with the tag on that one because I thought it was dead. There's another couple up here. Again, I might not have tags on these. I'm getting all tangled up here. Yeah, no tag again. But this one, again, a lot of cold damage on that. But the fact that the leaves haven't dropped, it's obviously not dead. I don't see any signs of life near the base yet. And the growths have, apart from that growth in the centre there, which is producing new leaves, most of the growing tips on the canes have stalled because of the cold damage on their tips. Obviously that's the sensitive, delicate point. But that's got some viable roots in there. There's no growing root tips as such, but a lot of dendrobiums push their roots out, you know, after the season gets going and the new growths start. But yeah, that one's alive. That one will pull on given time. And another one lurking up here that's a bit iffy as well. See, now this one looked dead. It's obviously not. This one, in fact, had a bud on it, but that fell off. That didn't last long. This is Chrysocrepis, Dendrobium chrysocrepis. I did put a tag on this one. And the kikis on this are actually growing. So, you know, this one doesn't look happy, but it's not dead yet. And the fact that the kikis are pushing out, obviously, you know, it's still working. There's no sign of life at the base yet. But it's a strange one, this one. If you look at the cross section of that cane, it's flat. Yeah? And that one there, you can see that flatness very clearly. But anyway, all I can do is try and get these going. You know, that's all any of us can do, quite honestly. So most of the others from Beatrix were smaller plants. I don't think there's any. No, so most of them, the little cattleyas, I can get those down. They got mounted, if you remember. This one here is has a new growth that's not growing fast, but it has one, and it's now started to produce roots. So this one's okay. That'll make it. That one was little lemon drops. Oh, crossed with the Encyclia Vetulina. So that one's going to make it. With new roots coming out and a new growth to push on, in time that will be a nice plant. What else we got up here lurking? There's a couple up here. This is two pieces, none of which had good roots. Sorry, neither of which had good roots, and the leaves are a little desiccated. But they haven't turned yellow and fallen off yet, and although those roots don't look good, they do hydrate. So I'm waiting on that one to start to move. One day, May take a while. Some cattleyas stall for 6 months and don't do anything, and then they burst into life or die. This one is Mary Chen crossed with Duvenii. I think that's what that says. That's my writing as well. I'm always complaining about other people's writing. Now this one has a few viable roots, and it is a young plant, but its latest growth is round this side, and that don't look bad. And that's the area that the new roots should come out in, so that should make it okay. So say I'm not really into rescuing plants, but I'll have a go at these and at least get them going. That's the least I can do. Then we've got a couple of biggies. I'm not getting that thing down. We've got this one up here, which has actually got nubbins pushing out quite well on some of the canes. So I think that's going to bloom. Not sure if I should let it, but it's difficult to stop it when they push spikes out like this. There are new growths pushing out at the base on this one. I mean, this is a good sized, very mature plant. Plenty big enough to bloom, and with new growths pushing out, there will be an active root system soon. This is the one with the piece that nearly fell off. I had to rewire, but it's coming on. There are new growths pushing out there. I can't get in close enough to show you because I'll tread all over me plants on the floor. There was something else. Where did I put it? Oh yes, the little Hamiltonaria is opening up nicely now. I want to try and get that pot out and get it somewhere where it gets more light. Not for the plant, it's just to light up those blooms, because they are a gorgeous yellow with red markings, but they'll look so much nicer in the light. Sherry baby spike. I thought that was going to be a weak spike with no branches, but it is pushing some branches out, so it won't be too bad. So we'll have chocolate fragrance down the line a bit, and this has just opened as well. In theory, these blooms will develop a pink tinge as they age. These aren't fully open yet. That lip will uncurl and reveal that gorgeous yellow with those delicate purple markings. And every bloom is different. They all have some red spotting, but they're all different. The spots, they're not consistent, so they're irregular. And sometimes they even get spots on the other two petals and the top sepal. They vary considerably. Now this was Odontoglossum crispum. It's now Oncidium alexandriae, and not in my book it's not. One of the original Odontoglossums, one of the first orchids, tropical orchids, to bloom in the UK back in Victorian times. So it has a hell of a history, this plant. Plant's not doing that well, and strictly speaking I shouldn't have let it bloom, but I just had to see these. I've been looking forward to this for so long. Lovely shape, lovely frills round the edges, irregular spottings, and that lovely yellow and purple in the centre. As I say, not fully open yet, but will be soon. Give it a couple of days and they'll be out. What else? There was something else. It's gone. I don't mean gone. Oh, here it is, over here. So I've been moving things, and once I move stuff, I forget where I put them for a couple of weeks. This little Coelogene is actually, buds are forming now, and this is Coelogene nitida, one of the most fragrant ones. Not huge blooms or anything like that, nothing like cristata or anything like that, but pretty blooms nonetheless, and very fragrant, one of the most fragrant Coelogenes, so that's coming soon. And you are taking your time. This is my Loddigessii. I'm getting impatient with this one because Todd's got one in bloom, and practically every video it's in there, and every time I see it I come back and look at this one and it's, come on, will you get these things open? But it can't be too far off now. I mean, it's got buds, so that's good. I haven't had that plant long, so that's a bonus. When we did that little game, you know, with a load of buds and spikes to have a guess at how long they might take before they open, quite a few people said about my Ivanagara apple blossom that the spikes are incredibly slow. Well, mine's pushing on quite quickly, and the bud in the centre that I said that's probably going to blast, it looks like it's going to swell and open now. So in theory there'll be 4 blooms on that spike. That's its only new growth, so that's its only spike. And then I'm hoping to get more growths on that one. This is going to go soon. This is the Farmer Eye cross with Griffithianum. They don't last long, but this has already lasted longer than I expected. So it's looking good, and it's got that one to follow on. So in theory, that one won't be far behind this one, and will continue that nice blooming. And that Cattleya looks gorgeous in the sunshine. I haven't seen the sunshine out here for so long. It gets tedious when it's all drab and sound of rain all the time. I know if you don't get much rain, the sound of rain's marvellous, but I could do with some sunshine. Get some heat out here like today. And as it's out, everybody seems to like looking at this one. And so do I. I don't think I'll ever get tired of looking at this one, quite honestly, because it's never done this before. As I say, that only ever had 1 spike with 2 blooms on. And I've lost count. There's 20 plus spikes on this. Most of them have two or 3 blooms per spike, and that's about right for Dendrobium jenkinsii. The aggregatum, which looks very similar, but it's a larger plant. And although the blooms are very, very similar, the aggregatum has much bigger spikes with many more blooms on. So, you know, even if you only had 1 spike, you could get 10 plus blooms on that spike, whereas this one, 4 is about the limit, I think, per spike. There's one up here with 4. That top one, that little one there's got 4. Most of them seem to be 3, and some are 2. So it does vary. But I'd say the average on this plant is 3 blooms per spike. There's another 4 there. There's a 2 there. So it does vary, but this is making up for the number of blooms per spike by the sheer number of spikes that are coming. And there's so many more blooms to come on this, and it'll tail off. As I say, I don't know how long these are going to last, the 4 runners, but this section here will be next, and there's a lot of them. And then right over here is the last section, which are these spikes are in their infancy, so it's going to be in bloom a nice long time. But the individual blooms don't last ages. They don't do bad, but you know. I say a lot of the winter resting dendrobiums have got relatively short-lived blooms. Not all, but a lot of them have. That's just how they are, and there is a tendency with those types to only bloom once as well. But I'm quite happy to wait each year for something like that. I got a horrible feeling that because this hasn't bloomed, it's now making up for lost time and blooming not only on last year's growths but possibly the year before's growths, which means next year it will have used up all the places it can bloom from, and it may only bloom on, you know, this year's growths. But that's a wait and see, because it's never done this before, so I just don't know. But, yeah, that's about it for today. Just a quick one. As I say, there's a little update. A lot of the rest of Beatrix's plants are up in here. These are the potted, the little ones. This little Zygonesia, I think it is. Zygonesia, yeah. It's a Zygopetalum hybrid, basically, a cross. And it lost its new growth. But it has got roots. So I'm hoping for another new growth on that. It's a very young plant, but you know, it's going to make it. I'm not sure the little Psychopsis is very happy. Its latest growth that it attempted isn't very good, and it feels limp. But again, it's got some roots, so hopefully it'll push out some new ones. And there's various other things dotted up in around there, and we'll see how they go. The Stardust Firebird Kikis that kept falling out the pot, it's pushing out a lot of new growth at the base now, so that one's coming on. It's not really in the best of medias. For Kikis and young plants can do with smaller media until they get their roots established, but I'm wondering whether that would just do better mounted. In theory, that is a nobly type. But if you look up the heritage of that, there's hardly any nobile in it. There's a bit. Buried down in there is nobile the species, but it's been hybridized so many times to get this that the nobile is almost lost. It's not really there. So perhaps it might do better mounted hanging. Maybe that will push out more growth from the base. But at least these are growing, you know, that's more than my one is. My one's buried down there, I can't get it out. It is going to bloom soon, it's got buds on it, and it has got at least one new growth at the base. So coming on, Sedera japonica. It's funny actually, a fragrant phalaenopsis. It's not that common. There's far more non-fragrant ones than there are fragrant ones, but this is renowned for being fragrant. I hate to say it, but I don't like it. It smells like lemon soap, you know, that sort of thing. I won't put that at the top of my list of my favourite fragrances, but the spike looks nice, you know, the blooms have opened nicely, so at least it's done that. Anyway, I'll see you next time. I've got a lot to do today, and not orchid stuff, other stuff, so I want to crack on, get this sea of green back up where it lives, up there. And I've also got to water my mounts and my holy clay pots today, and it's already 11:15. So I need to get going. So thanks for dropping by, and see you next time. It's just taking this fogger down to fill it up because it was virtually empty. And as I swung round, I looked at the reading on there, and I thought, if that's 64, why aren't you on? Well, they work an awful lot better if you actually turn them on. So that's why that one wasn't working very hard. It wasn't working at all. Duh. I can't remember everything. Anyway, when they work together, neither of them work that hard, so it's a matter of balancing them so that the humidity stays high. If I hadn't noticed that reading, I'd have wondered why the hell the water wasn't going down on that one. But it is now.